there's two aspects here that I think are really important for the human touch. The first is right now like downstream workflows, and by that I mean if you have to ping a Stripe API to process a refund, that still for the most part needs to get done by a human. And our goal is for Ducky to pop up next to you and say, look, here's the response that you can say to this churn ticket, and here are all of the actions that I want to take on your behalf.
I'm excited for today's show more than usual because I'm learning a lot new, and I hope some of you out there are today as well. Vincent A. Lancy here with That Entrepreneur Show, another episode here with my co-host Alyssa and James. Thank you both so much for joining.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Vincent.
What I teased I'm going to learn more of is this AI world. I can't wait to dive in. We have James here, co-founder and COO of Ducky, customer support AI that works alongside humans to help them perform their best. He's got a great background as well, specifically in finance, crypto, all investments. So he's bringing value from there. But he's also got, again, this AI thing. I'm excited you see my smile. After your experiences with Bitcoin, doing investments, what ultimately led you to Ducky?
I think crypto taught me that there are two things that matter more than anything to me when it comes to the projects I'm working on and the companies that I start, and that's to work on interesting problems with people that I like and trust. And to be totally honest with you, blockchain was absolutely fascinating, and I did not anticipate leaving the world of crypto and blockchain. And then I was fortunate enough to meet my co-founder, who's a machine learning engineer. And after we got to know each other for, I don't know, it was like 20 minutes. It didn't take long. I was like, I feel like I'm going to kick myself for the rest of my life if I don't hop on board and try to understand this like crazy tidal shift that's happening in our world.
Obviously, startup life's a lot different than maybe were you working in a bank, or what was like that transition like?
No, it was all startup finance. So to call
Okay.
me a finance guy would probably give me like way too much credit. I got into quote unquote finance by way of fintech.
Okay.
And actually by a role in customer support. So my first like real software startup job was the first employee of a company called AltoIRA, and they do retirement accounts, IRA investing for non-publicly traded assets, crypto being one of those. But when I got that job, it wasn't because I knew anything about finance or really anything about software. It was just because I like helping people, and the founder was like, "You're hungry, and you're gonna, wake up every day and work hard." And then everything I learned about, financial infrastructure and crypto specifically really came on the back of just good people taking bets on me, honestly.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like was that really your like your pivotal point in your career where you decided to kind of take off and yeah, I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, I mean, I would be doing, I guess, my previous experience a little bit of a disservice to say that that was the only pivotal moment. I think the first company I started, well, I guess I was a part of a band, which is what brought me down to Nashville, Tennessee. And although I wouldn't necessarily
Okay.
call it a startup, it felt a lot like a startup in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And we can go more into that if you want to. But then I actually, I mean, almost like accidentally, I started a company in men's shaving, focusing on sustainable and ecological shaving. And it was one of those, I think, classic entrepreneurial stories where some crazy idea came across my desk. And by that, I mean the band van as we were touring across like Illinois. And I just couldn't get this idea out of my head. And I didn't really even know what startups were at that point. It was just a product that I was, again, fortunate enough to meet a great co founder, and he came from an entrepreneurial family. And that was the first time that somebody kind of like delivered to me. They were like, look, entrepreneurship, startups, raising money, all this good stuff is like actually a viable career path. That was really the first thing that like set a light bulb off in my head that this was something that I could do. And then after struggling and ultimately failing at that company for like 4.5, 5 years, just as I said before, like the CEO of Alto just took a bet on me. And that was like his tutelage and mentorship is really what kind of like cast me into the whole world of venture backed startups.
I mean, I'm certainly inspired. In the show notes for when we go live, the band moved you to Tennessee, which we're going to talk about right now, but accidentally started the first company while in the band van. I think that's really cool. Do you find that the music juices, that creativity may have leaked over into the entrepreneurship mindset?
100%. I love this question because I've thought a lot about it in my life. I was very ardently a creative. I don't know if you can see any of this art in my
Yeah.
office, but it's all my dad's work. So my dad was an artist, and my mom was also very creative. And I was always like, "Yeah, business is the devil. I'm a creative. I'm going to sing my whole life." I was a theater kid. And then once I got into the, the founder seat for Shave Face, my first startup, that's when it kind of hit me. I was like, this is A, not the devil, and B, it's just creativity in a very different way. It's creative problem solving, it's creative, collaboration with other human beings. And that's what I think that my mindset shift is really what did it for me when I got out of my comfort zone and like actually opened my eyes to what the reality of business was instead of what I always thought business was.
What do you feel like inspired that mindset shift for you ultimately?
Pretty common for like everything in my life. I'm a real people person, and it was just having really wonderful people around me who had already, had legitimate jobs, so to speak, as opposed to me who was in a band. And they just had experience that proved to me that everything I thought about business was pretty fundamentally inaccurate. And I was, how do I say, being relatively obtuse.
Mm.
What were some of those false pretenses you had about business that did keep you not interested?
I think in the beginning it was a lot of just like silly stereotypes, like, you're just clocking in, you're clocking out, you're wearing suits, you're not doing anything interesting, you're putting in your data entering, your spreadsheets. Not that I don't do spreadsheets, but
Yeah.
and then once I realized that it was really just, I would say, a people game more than anything, and people was kind of what gets me out of bed every morning, that's really what did it for me.
Thank you
That
for
and like
sharing that.
that and making physical products is the first thing that really like inspired me. Working on manufacturing, working on product design, working on and then being able to see, I would not taste them because they were shaving products, but like see and touch them, really, really did it for me. And then I think then moving on to Alto when we built software products, right? Like not exactly tangible products, but still products that touch tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. That was really, really interesting to me and still is, right? Like the classic scalability of software, which is that you can build something, you can build it once, obviously iterate and improve it over time, but that will actually have an impact, ideally, on tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. Like that to this day is like one of the things that I find incredibly interesting and one of the reasons why I think we do what we do.
I mean, to impact that many people, congratulations. That's all, of course, in purpose-driven work, trying to impact those lives. Shaving company to where you are today, it's inspiring and the message that you never know where life's going to take you. As long as you work hard, opportunities will present themselves. I like how you really paid the respect forward, like give your co-founders that shout out, continue to build. If there were to be, excuse me, another industry that's after this, I mean, you're from shaving cream to here. What would it be next? What else do you have passion for?
Man, what a wonderful question. I have a maybe silly, maybe wonderful daydream of, selling one of our businesses and then buying some land and becoming a maple syrup farmer.
Wow.
I would love to get back to the world of making a physical product that requires the use of, your hands and your sweat. I find myself like, as an example, I really enjoy like yoga and I really enjoy rock climbing. Just things that actually take some tactile energy, like things that you can see manifested in physical space. So I would not be surprised if that's where I went with this. Not saying I'm going to go try to build $1 billion maple syrup brand, but something along those lines. And then if we were to, build this one, run it, sell it, whatever it is, and then do something else in AI, I can only imagine where AI is going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. That's again, it's just absolutely intellectually stimulating. And then I couldn't put crypto down if I wanted to. So if I ended up back in there, I also wouldn't be too shocked.
Yeah. So, a lot of what I'm hearing you say, which is so interesting and inspiring to me too, is that you like to be very hands-on with the shaving and then talking about the maple syrup project or yeah, the project or the product,
Yeah, the
but
dream, the
also,
dream.
having such an interest in AI and crypto. AI is very separate from hands-on. So it's really interesting to see those two kind of formulate into one, one passion for you as well.
I actually, although you can't like touch and feel AI, I actually think it's more it's more tactile, not in a literal sense, but then one might think, again, I've said this a couple times, but I'll dig into it a little bit. Like the EQ side of life and like building legitimate, authentic, and like soul fulfilling human connection has been something that's always mattered to me a lot in life. And the moment that I started learning about AI, even before I met my co-founder, which was, before like ChatGPT was publicly available, I just couldn't help shake this idea that the onset of AI could leave us to a place where like human connection was undervalued and underserved. And I'm sure we've all seen a million like sci-fi dystopian movies and read books about that exact reality. And that's something that we're very much trying to, I'm not going to say combat because like I'm not out here like carrying a flag and like going to war, but the idea that human connection could become, could go the way of the Romans, right? And could be something that is not a part of like our children's lives, as an example, is kind of, I'm not gonna say frightening, but like it's kind of sad to me. So that's one of the reasons why like we build the way that we build, which is to help humans, we like to say like augment human capacity as opposed to replace it. And I think that's a dream and a goal that's like probably worth a whole life of toil.
Yeah,
I
that's a really awesome response. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I want to keep staying on this AI subject right now while we're talking about your company and the outskirts of what they do. Let's talk more about exactly what you do so our listeners can get excited to use your service.
Yeah, sure thing. So Ducky, again, as I've already said, Ducky is a tool that supports human beings who work in customer support and service. And the version of how we do that right now is by essentially connecting to any sort of pertinent internal knowledge within your business. To take a slight step back, when we started this company, we had an idea that was totally dissimilar to anything we're doing right now. And we weren't sold on the fact that it was like a really big market and a good fit for us as founders. So we built our partnership, and that was really like the seed to start our company, but we didn't have an idea that we were super stoked about. So what we did from there is we literally just went out to the market and we validated ideas with like 100, 125 people in business, and like 9.5 out of 10 of them said like knowledge is a huge problem. Like it's all over the place. We have all these tools that are supposed to make our life easier, and in reality, you end up just like hopping from Asana to Notion to Confluence to Airtable to Linear. And it's like nothing is amalgamated into one place. And as a result, it's hard to find the right information. It's hard to update the right information. And it's really hard, especially within a team, to say, hey, like product team needs to know this that customer support saw, but how do we get that over to them, like actually make it a part of their workflow? So we dug deeper into that and ultimately decided to fall back on like my experience in customer support because it's very near and dear to my heart, and also just a giant market and a very logical application of AI. So anyway, long ramble ending here. Ducky takes all of that information that's connected within your business, and when a customer correspondence comes in our case, an email, Ducky's an email ticketing tool that sits next to Zendesk, HubSpot. It doesn't matter what ticketing system you use, Ducky can work alongside you. Ducky will read that ticket, and because it studied all of your previous tickets, it knows the types of problems that typically pop up, and it knows the way you like to solve them. So it will then say, hey, this standard operating procedure in Notion is exactly the process that you need to follow in order to solve this ticket. And then the next step from there is Ducky will say, look, I've learned how you like to talk to customers. I've learned the types of responses that you like to send to customers specifically for this problem. And this is the type of response that you can send. And then the human reviews it. If it's great right off the bat, they just copy, paste it, send it. If it's not, there'll be a little bit of editing. As I know y'all know, like every interaction is very different and unique. So you can't necessarily guarantee that any given response is going to be accurate just because it was sent that way previously. So that's our way of just keeping humans in the loop and making sure that the AI's work is actually truthful and relevant, such that there's additional power to be had from the AI plus the human. And we think that that combination is more powerful than either one of those disparate parts by themselves.
I like how you said you're supplementing, you're not replacing the human, because I'm with you. It's frustrating for me when I can't have human interaction when I need to, or I feel like I want to, especially in customer service roles. Now it's very hard to not just get an AI chat box somewhere where I mean, companies like Facebook, Instagram, these big companies, sorry, we can't talk to you on the phone right now. And I think I would be more it would be more a likable brand for me if they did have that human to human interaction. Is there now a V2s coming out, updates of Duckies? What's next for the brand? What's next for the product line?
Yeah, for sure. I think eventually we have this thesis, which is like really how we started this whole thing, which is that it's kind of silly in the age of AI that customer support folks work in like a glorified email inbox where they have to, maybe there's a macro, sure, but for the most part, they have to generate a net new response to every problem, even if that problem's been solved thousands, tens of thousands, millions of times in the past. So our goal is to automate anything that happens repetitiously, right? So like a workflow that happens, let's just say churn tickets, right? Like somebody wanting to cancel your service is a very common example here, where most companies that are like direct to consumer, if it's software, 20% ish of their tickets are usually in somehow related to like, hey, the free trial was cool, but I'd like to cancel, or like we're being billed and I'd like to cancel. And those just aren't complicated problems to solve, right? Like there's no need for a human being to look at every single one of those tickets and say, cool, I'm going to handle it the same way that, my manager has told me to handle it time and time again. But there's two aspects here that I think are really important for the human touch. The first is right now, like downstream workflows. And by that, I mean, if you have to ping a Stripe API to process a refund, that still, for the most part, needs to get done by a human. And our goal is for Ducky to pop up next to you and say, look, here's the response that you can say to this churn ticket. And here are all of the actions that I want to take on your behalf. But obviously, sending money back to somebody is not necessarily something that you want to give AI full power over because it's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
frightening. And if it goes off the rails, like I'm sure we've all heard about the $1 truck being sold through, I think it was a Chevy chatbot. Sorry if it wasn't Chevy. I mean, no disrespect. So those kinds of things where Ducky can say, look, this is the problem that we're looking at. This is the response, and here are all the downstream actions. Can you approve that I'm actually going to take the right action on your behalf? That's where we're working towards. And then the way that that looks in terms of like a full platform, when we move away from, being a co-pilot to actually being a ticketing platform or a communication platform, the goal is for it to be more of an exception handling mechanism. And by that, I mean, if Ducky knows how to cover, let's just say 50, 60% of tickets pretty autonomously and pretty automatically, there's always going to be outliers.
Right.
And that's when you really need a human being to look at them, to approve them, to use that tribal knowledge and that expertise. But I think the last thing I'll say on this topic is like, the cool thing about that is that if you can take kind of like the soul crushing, like really repetitious, boring work away from people, you're then giving them the opportunity to like be more human, be more empathetic, connect with customers, be more strategic, because customer support folks have more insight into your customers than
Yeah.
anybody. And very often that information doesn't make it through to anybody else in the business. And I think that's actually a huge risk.
Couldn't agree with you more. Alyssa, what do you
Yeah.
think about that?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And to kind of add on to what Vincent said too, I really like that you talk about it more in a supplemental standpoint versus this isn't a replacement. A lot of people who, may not really have any type of knowledge of AI. I mean, we've all seen the Terminator movies. That's what I go back and think of. And for a lot of us, it can be really scary if we don't have the proper knowledge. But I think what you have created and are implementing into people's workforces are going to create these systems that
Mm.
Ducky is like their helper through that, feeding it all this knowledge. And over time, it's going to just create such a smooth system. And that's really what I see, not as a replacement, but as something that's working alongside of the human in that job.
We certainly hope so. I mean, one thing that I like to say, it came to me in a moment's notice on a podcast a couple weeks ago, was AI is not coming for your jobs, it's coming for your tasks. So it's really up to not only the person to ensure that they stay relevant and they can use like that innate EQ, problem solving ability, strategic ability, but it's also up to the business, right, to make these decisions. We don't build chatbots. I don't know if we'll ever build chatbots. I'm not out here ragging on chatbots, but it is like a very opinionated business choice that businesses make where they're willing to sacrifice the quality of human connection. And very often, Vincent, as you said earlier, like the reputation of their business. Like,
Yeah.
if you have a bad chatbot interaction and somebody can't get through to a human, and even if they do get through to a human, they're probably going to be pretty upset by the time they get there. And if that's just a dollars and cents comparison, which is like I get to fire 25% of my support team because the chatbot will do this, I mean, sure, I guess it's all well and good. Like an FP&A decision that you
Yeah.
are very much allowed to make. But at least from where we sit and like from all of the people in customer support that we interact with a lot, customer support managers, chief customer officers, like are not really excited about that eventuality. They're excited
Yeah.
about doing more with less and using these awesome folks that they already have on their teams to do more and service customers better.
I love how you said that. I am excited to see the growth of Ducky. I'm excited to see your growth now that we're connected. I'm certainly thinking about giving it a try because my Gmail auto populate, they're not something that I would say. It's just like that sounds right. That's cool. I'm like, that's not anything I would say. So I love that. I want to thank you both so much, Alyssa, for joining me on a co-host, you for taking the time to sit here on a podcast with me, talk all about Ducky's, your journey, which I loved sharing, from your band starting to all of a sudden meeting two co-founders that changed your life. One more time with the website for Ducky's and one more time where we could find both of you.
So for us, it's ducky.ai, ducky.ai. You can go on there, you can check out our demo, you can contact us. Feel free to reach out to me directly, james@ducky.ai. And yeah, that's us.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Alyssa, where can
and
we find you?
yeah, you can find me at unlimitedrefills.blog. That is the Unlimited Refills blog, and you can find me on any social media platform at Alyssa Young, as well as, of course, LinkedIn.
I love it. Well, be sure to go check out all they have to offer online. The show is at That Entrepreneur Show on all podcast platforms, all social media platforms, and I am at Vincent A. Lancy on the same. This show is brought to you by Coming Alive Podcast Production, your one-stop shop for podcasting. Head to Coming Alive Podcast Production to learn more. And with that, we are signing off today from Tennessee down to Florida. James, Alyssa, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye,
Vincent.
all. Thank y'all.